I am honored and very excited that we have a very dear guest, a dear friend, who is a visionary, a scientist, and an entrepreneur who has had a track record of over 25 years of creating companies and helping other people create companies. Please help me welcome Dr. Mostafa Ronaghi.
Thank you, Sajan.
Mostafa Jan, thank you. Indeed, it's an honor and a pleasure. And I would like to plot our conversation tonight. I would like to take us to at least 3 areas. One of them is going to be your entrepreneurship path and the companies that you started and you succeeded. The other one is the trends in science of genomics. I'm sure many people here would like to benefit from your knowledge. And first and foremost, I would like to get to know you, or audience get to know you personally more and learn about your personal journey. You were born in Iran.
That's correct.
When did you leave Iran, and what age did you leave Iran?
I left Iran back in 1987.
Well, and how old were you?
I was about 20 years old.
20 years old. So did you finish, you finished high school in Iran?
Yes, I did.
And
actually,
then you went to Sweden.
Yes.
And you got your PhD there in the Royal Institute of Technology.
That's correct.
And that's where you did your famous work of pyrosequencing, right?
Yes.
Tell us, what is pyrosequencing?
Pyrosequencing is a sequencing technology, and actually that was the first next generation sequencing technology that was developed, and that laid the foundation of quite many technologies which are based on sequencing by synthesis, which means that you have a strand of DNA, you add the building block of the DNA, and each time you synthesize that building block, so you get a signal.
Okay, so this is about sequencing, and at that time when you did it, circa about 2000, right? 2003, 2000?
96, actually.
96.
I was in my...
So this preceded, I stand corrected. So the Genome Project, when they sequenced the human genome, they finished in 2003. So yours provided, Genome Project took 10 years, $2 billion, you know, a lot of scientists worked on that. But I remember your pyrosequencing technique could do this a lot faster at that time, right?
Yes, so the genome, the first human genome took about 3 billion, more than 10 years, $3 billion to sequence it. Yes. And it involved actually tens of scientists around the globe to do it. And so that version of genome has been completed several times, so still not 100% completed. And so what we tried to do was to leverage the advances in semiconductor technologies. Mm-hmm. The previous technology that was used for human genome sequencing that could not be implemented on semiconductors. So we created this new chemistry that could be grafted on the semiconductor, and we could sequence in parallel. That means that...
That came later on, though. This is when you made, made
you know,
it into massive parallel technology, which became the foundation.
So initially, when developed this chemistry, I was frustrated by the back then current technology that was very laborious and very difficult to perform. So I wanted to have a simpler chemistry, and as we started,
This is here, or
no? It's actually in
this is back
Sweden.
In Sweden. Yeah, this is the foundations of pyrosequencing.
Yes, in my graduate school, I had started my graduate school, and I pivoted my graduate school toward this technology. And so initially, we wanted to have a simpler chemistry, but as we developed the chemistry, so we realized that actually you can do parallel processing and leverage the semiconductor technology. And so initially, of course, the pixel sizes, they were large, but we started actually reducing the pixel sizes for grafting the DNA on each pixel. So fast forward, so the first human genome took about $3 billion to expenditure. And then the technology became more streamlined, so it became about $200 million to sequence a human genome.
And
that's
down
about
all the way.
2003, 2004. And since then, so we leveraged this technology, and a lot of other people actually developed versions of this technology, which is one of them is Illumina's technology.
Illumina's. Well, we get to that. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Let me slow you down a little bit, because some people may not know all the implications. I mean, we have talked about pyrosequencing in the back days. I'm quite familiar with it. But you came here with that technology which could expedite this very, very important task that the world was after, sequencing genome, right? And you came here and you wanted to improve on that one. First, you joined Stanford. I remember you were part of Stanford. What did you do at Stanford?
So
I'm not the
I would
technical
go back.
details yet. Yes.
I go back in '97. I gave a talk actually in Miami in the international conference about genome sequencing. And so the whole community of people around the world would get together to discuss the recent advances about.
This was 96 or
97.
97. So
That
this
was
is
the first
before the
time-
genome project finished.
That was the first time I gave that talk, and a guy came forward to me and introduced himself, and so I'm Francis Calling, I'm head of NHGRI, and so it was NHGRI, and I didn't know.
Francis Collins himself.
And he asked, I love what you're presenting. We are having an RFA, and so it was RFA, so request for applications for a grant. I want that you would apply for this grant. I told, I live actually in Sweden, so don't worry, apply for this, and we are going to figure out later. And
so they came to you to give you the grant,
So he encouraged me to actually apply the grant with a U.S. entity, so that would increase my chances. And I had always interest actually to move to U.S. And so I actually found a company, a very small company called Illumina, and they had just started.
This was
I read
after
about
Stanford?
them. No, before Stanford.
Before Stanford. Illumina started before that.
Yes.
Okay.
And I read about them actually in a photonic magazine about their fiber optic plate that they had. And I was fascinated by that, and I approached them, and I talked about, that you can do actually sequencing on this. So we applied for a grant with NIH, and our grant got funded. And so that gave me actually quite a bit of money to start my lab, and I was going around the US actually evaluating where would be a good place for me to land, and I decided actually to join Stanford to start my lab to.
So I'm a little bit confused. What was the relationship between Illumina and Stanford?
So Illumina was my co-applicant for the grant.
Oh, I see. Okay. And then you at Stanford, you didn't last long, like 2 or 3 years.
No, I was there 9 years.
9 years.
I'm
okay.
actually quite immobile person.
Oh, I see. And then you went and joined Illumina.
Yes. I was approached by the CEO of Illumina, and he asked me if I can join the company as their CTO, and I told, Jay, I'm conflicted. And he asked me, what's your conflict? I said, I started a company last week in the area that actually is going to compete with you.
What company was that?
It was Avantum.
Okay.
And
so by that time, you had spun off Illumina. It was your company?
No, it was not. Illumina was already a company. There were 3 people. They were just my co-applicant on the grant. So
I see.
Stanford, I had a joint collaboration with Illumina, which we discontinued back in 2003. And
so you were free from Illumina first, and then you rejoined.
I never joined Illumina. I was just collaborating with them. Okay. So I was at Stanford.
Okay.
I was collaborating with a startup company, Illumina. And then we discontinued that project. And I continued that project, which became Avantum.
Okay.
And so I told Jay about the technology. And so he basically gave me an offer to continue the work at Illumina and be their CTO, and he would acquire the company. So that was probably the fastest acquisition I've experienced. You know, after 1 week of starting the company, we engaged into basically.
So this was Illumina redo. You did it the second time. This was the second time you joined.
Yes.
Now, by this time, Illumina was a huge company.
Yes.
And you going from a startup Illumina to a big Illumina must have been some changes, some shocks that you had. How was the difference? What was the difference between?
It's actually much easier to be an entrepreneur and join a larger company. It's very difficult to be at a large company, executive at a large company, and become an entrepreneur, actually. So that's much more challenging.
So you prefer to do it from small company to the big company, and the shock
I
of
think
it
there is higher success rate, in my opinion, to go from small company to larger company, because it's like going to a candy store.
How so? How so? Explain.
You have all the resources,
I see.
Of course you have to navigate the political, labyrinth that you have inside the company, but and probably learn some sort of management. But those are more, acquirable than, acquiring a vision and not having resources and to do the work like you do in startup.
Mostafa Jan, you have this fantastic reputation that you are so eager to help other people succeed and build their companies. You've done it many times. Some of the names that I know is Narges Bani Asadi with Bina, Sasan Amini with Clear Labs, and Amir Ali Talasaz with Guardant Health. You're on the board of a couple of these companies.
Yes.
Bina was sold to Roche. Are there other companies, and why do you do this? What motivates you in helping? And I'm giving a hint with people who have some ideas in biotech companies that he is the man to see if you want to grow. Why do you do that? I mean, I admire you for doing that.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to help the people inside our community. I have a joy, honestly, in helping those people. And I appreciate everyone who is actually helping the community. I think these two brothers are the prominent, helpers in this community. What you have done, to bring all the people together, and
let the record show that he is pointing to Saeed Amidi and Rahim Amidi, who are sitting over here.
So I'm very, very thankful. They have been helping me as well. So it would be a pleasure for me to help. But of course, you have limited amount of time. So you have to see, whether the current commitment you have, whether you can deliver on those commitments.
You don't want to overload yourself.
So at this stage, I'm actually unwinding that.
Oh, you are? Fat chance you will do that. Is there a story behind any of these three companies, or maybe a fourth company, that what happened? How did you get involved?
Narges was a student at Stanford when I was at Stanford, so we had very good interaction, and she asked me if I could be a co-founder of her company. I told I'm probably, I wouldn't be a good choice because I'm at Illumina. Yes, I'm at Illumina, so but I would be able to help you probably better not being your co-founder, and I can tell you, what I think you should do. So, and that's how I got involved. Sasan, of course, I know him from Iran, so he was at Tehran University when he was a student, actually before getting to university. So he had just got he was the gold medal of biology Olympiad. And so he could get into any university to study anything. So I actually started helping Sasan before getting to the university. I had a collaborator, Dr. Elahi at Tehran University, and she asked me if I can help Sasan. And so it has been a true pleasure, of course, to help him. So I wanted to bring him to Stanford, but the political system of Stanford didn't let that. But I asked my friend at Princeton, can you accept this guy? He was in the admission committee, and Saeed Tabazoui actually.
Which one of these three companies are genomic related?
I think Bino was in the field of genomics,
Yes.
of course, genome assembly. So Clear Labs has been in the pathogen sequencing and surveillance. Is actually the prominent machine to sequence all the COVID variant across all the public health lab. 80% of the public health lab in US, they use that technology. What was the third one? Amir Ali, I actually helped him to move to US because I had funding, and so I was his co-advisor at Stanford. I helped him to start the first company which I acquired within weeks, Artifacts, at Illumina. So he joined Illumina as a director position, which was quite major coming out of
right
university.
At the beginning, yes.
And I helped him to start Guardant. So the Guardant technology was the foundation of that technology.
That's the name of a company, Guardant. Yeah.
Foundation of that technology.
What
was
is your
developed.
company right now? Cellanome?
Cellanome is a tools company. We have been stealth, so we haven't talked a lot about the company, but we
I noticed there isn't much on our website.
No,
but we
have raised Series A and Series B, and so we are developing a machine that combines actually computer vision, 3D printing, as well as core sequencing device to create very good environment for cells to be studied.
For cells to be studied. And
Yeah.
the goal is something you can tell us. I know it's
No, the goal is of course, so
multivariable knowledge about
so when
cells.
you look at, majority or probably all of the medical breakthroughs, actually they are as a result of technological breakthroughs.
Yeah.
So in the field of cell therapy, so we have major shortcomings, and the reason is that we and cell therapy has become very popular for cancer treatment, and that's a phenomenal field. And
Explain
so
to me, what is cell therapy? I mean, for some people,
So
I don't know what cell therapy is.
Cell therapy is basically to take a cell and treat a patient. It's not a new field. It's actually more than 50 years old field. The first cell therapy approach was IVF, in vitro fertilization.
Yes.
So you could actually modify the cell or
Right.
do the fertilization and implant it, and help females that they could not get pregnant.
Right.
So that was the first kind of approach of cell therapy, but the cell therapy that is actually very common these days. It started more than 10 years ago, 12, 13 years ago.
Genome, because of the sequencing.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
So that's the new cell therapy is about taking your own cell, engineer that, and put it back into your body to treat a disease.
This is like using CRISPR, for example, to edit parts
So
of
the editing could be CRISPR, or it could be through viruses. Yes.
So I would like to move back to the trends of genomics now, because the ultimate is Cellanome, that you are trying to come up with some sort of a solution for therapy, not only cell therapy, but therapy for all aspects of the things that can go wrong with body through the genomic process, the data that you're getting. It's interesting to me. I was thinking that Silicon Valley was built on silicon, hardware, transistor, and then we moved to software, and then recently we are on web and mobile. But for the past 10, 15, 20 years, the concentration is coming back on human health and biomedical science. And you're a forerunner on that one. That combined with AI can give you, a lot of power to do things that people were not able to do about 10, 15 years ago. But there are questions, like there are ethical questions, and there are, first of all, should people get their genome sequenced? That's one question I wanted to ask, and I find you to answer that.
Yes.
If I find a way to a cheap way to sequence all my genes. Should I do it?
I think you could, but you are not going to learn a lot.
I'm not going to learn a lot. Because?
Because the genome has not been very actionable. So, and that was one of the initiatives I had at Illumina to make it more actionable. So you're sequencing basically 3.2 billion bases or building blocks on your DNA. Yeah. And out of those 3.2 billion bases that we sequence, we don't have a lot of information about what base
does what.
Is doing what.
99% of it is common, and some of it is garbage that you've told.
I wouldn't say that is common. Everything is
human beings. They all share the same.
There is similarities, yes, but the actionability of genome is low because we haven't found the connection between the variant.
We don't know what does what.
Exactly.
Because some of them are multiple
when
genes.
When you look at, the actionability of genome has not moved that much actually in the past 10 years, honestly, because, we have moved from 0.001% to 0.1%. So we know about 0.1% of the genome that what they are doing. And so in order to have a meaningful and tangible result for anyone to sequence their genome, so we need to bring the actionability to about 8%. And the reason that's 8%
now, you said?
Yes,
wow.
0.1%.
Okay.
And the reason that's 8%, we modeled actually a lot of different ways on how many mutations each person would have that should care about. And so between the studies, show that it's between 13 to 15%. 13 to 15 variations, sorry.
Variations. Different places where it changes.
So let's say one of the variation is BRCA gene, which is causing breast cancer.
Yes.
Not causing, but people that they are carrying that
correlated.
Gene, they are more susceptible to get breast cancer. And so if you would know that you are a carrier of the BRCA variant, then you need to do more frequent monitoring.
This is what the famous actress, who was it, who had a double
Angelina Jolie. So.
Yes. And because he carried that
yes,
gene?
she carried that.
She
carried that mutation, yes, and she wanted to not to be the victim of breast cancer, and she did double mastectomy, yes. And so there are mutations like Lynch syndrome that actually people, they would get colon cancer. So if you would have it, then you would do colonoscopy more often, So these are the type of mutations, and each person has about 15 of these mutations that are unique to you. And if you would increase the actionability of the genome to about 8%, so each time, if you would sequence your genome, so you have at least one result to monitor, one problem that you need to monitor. It could be related to the drug, actually. So you see that there are a lot of the drugs, in the market, and not the efficacy of those drugs, efficiency of those drugs are very different, across different individuals. Yes. So those are the relationship that we have to make. That, okay, if you would carry this mutation, that means that you are a slow metabolizer of this drug. So, but you could be fast metabolizer of this drug. So those are the kind of guidance we need to give to individuals. And if I would tell you, okay, sequence your genome, the likelihood of you finding anything
is very low.
Yeah, it's very low.
So as far
that's why, I wouldn't, is a plus. I have done it myself 3 times, yes. And I actually, it helped myself. Because, I was fast metabolizer of simvastatin, which is statin drug, for lowering cholesterol.
Yes.
And so when I increased the dosage, so I felt that I am actually getting cramp when I play soccer. And so after sequencing my genome, so I found that actually I'm fast metabolizer of simvastatin. So I should go to rosuvastatin, which is metabolized much slower, and I asked my doctor to cut the dosage by 4-fold.
So I should do that. I should do that too, because
yes, there is not.
I'm a vegetarian and I have high cholesterol. I mean, how could it be? Because there is a genome acting.
No, definitely there is value, but
Yeah.
you know, the likelihood of you finding the value may not be very
No,
high.
I understand that. No, but let's talk
But
about.
that's going to change. And
What's
actually,
about-
one of the reasons that I started Cellanome is actually to make the genome more actionable as well.
Yes. So at some point you said, 0.1% and it has to be 8%. Has to be 8%. So there is a mismatch. And wherever there is a mismatch, there is an opportunity. So there are people over here who are working on ideas, on concepts, and hopefully some of them are related to what you're talking about. How would you encourage people to get more into this area that you're an expert in? And what should people do to take advantage of this mismatch?
I think any technology that would do large-scale phenotyping, could be interesting. And that could be, let's say, using AI to find the correlation between the phenotypes, existing phenotypes.
What is phenotype?
It's basically the features that are being seen. Let's say, my phenotype is that I have a big nose. So that's a phenotype.
We share that.
Or if I could be, a sprinter, if I can, that's a phenotype. So if you would have those kind of phenotypes, you can actually make correlation to, potentially make correlation to the variants of the genome.
But the question is, what should people do?
So if could be, for example, having access to medical record data, let's say, and making these kind of correlations to make the genome more actionable. Yes, there is value in that. Myself, I'm interested in, biological unit of every single person, which is a cell, and cell is, carries a lot of information and phenotype.
Yes.
So if I would have those phenotypes, any change that happens in the genome, it would have impact in the phenotype of the cell.
Yes.
Some of the phenotypes are measurable and some of them they are not. So, but a lot of them they could be measured by actually phenotyping the cell.
Let me ask you something else. Drug discovery. How does genomics, gene sequencing, help drug discovery? Is it only in the realm of personalized medicine, or is it something more general that we can get on?
No, definitely more general.
Okay.
Definitely more general. No, there has been a lot of discoveries of drug targets. They find that there is a variation at the genome level, in certain population that gives them more protection. So they would basically, pharma companies, they have taken, for example, these kind of concept in creating a better version of basically drugs for those.
The generic drugs could change, what you're saying.
Yes, definitely.
So in the future, based on certain characteristics of genome or personalized information that I have from my genome, I could take a different kind of a painkiller or different kind of a...
there are two different things that we are talking. So one is actually drug target discovery.
Yes.
So that could happen. Then you're talking about personalization of drugs. Yes, that could happen as well. Because as I mentioned, that I was actually taking, wrong statin. And that would cause cramp for me. And so cramp is a sign of toxicity.
Yeah.
So, of course, you want to get rid of that toxicity.
And how do you do that? How do you use genome information, genomic?
So I changed my drug. I went from simvastatin to rosuvastatin. Okay. But blood thinning, kind of drugs, they are probably one of the most famous ones that they have been discovered. Warfarin, has been a very good blood thinner, but some people, they are basically bleeding.
They resist that, essentially.
Yes. They are bleeding,
Let me ask you about this maybe social or philosophical dilemma. We are moving towards personalized, targeted treatments of certain disease. But ultimately, it's going to be expensive to provide those to every single person on Earth. So people who can pay will benefit from these advances in the science. what gives us the assurance that, you know, the society is spending all this money? Like a genome project was a societal, you know, the U.S. government footed the bill. That the benefit will come and trickle down faster to everybody else, and not only to the rich people.
I think, you know, yes, there is a concern, but is not of a big concern. Because, yes, the technology could be accessible, you know, to people that they are richer, yes. But, you know, that's not a large market. So I think the large market is based to serve everyone. So that's why, you know, price reduction is going to happen. So there is elasticity in those markets, in another word. So you really want to reduce the price to serve larger populations and offer them, you know, the most advanced solutions. Mm-hmm. The same is true with cell therapy today. So cell therapy is about, yeah, we are lucky that we live in US, so if it is approved, you know, by FDA, and if it improves the survival rate, the insurance, they have to pay for it. But, you know, the cell therapy for cancer, these are basically $1 million treatments.
How much?
$1 million treatment.
Mm-hmm.
If you would have insurance, of course, you can get it. But if you wouldn't have insurance, you wouldn't get it. But, you know, this $1 million is not going to last long, of course.
So you mean it's going to be cheaper? Why?
Absolutely,
How?
absolutely. Because cost of manufacturing is quite high today. So it has come down in the past 3 years. You know, it has come down from $500,000 in production of cell for one patient to about 200,000, and there are further works that are in the being pursued now that would decrease the cost of manufacturing to about $1,000, $2,000 per patient.
Let me ask you my last question, and perhaps this is a repeat of a question I asked you know, about 10 minutes ago. For the audience who are sitting over here, and they are interested to get into biotechnology, what areas do you think are open with opportunities for them? What would you suggest they would study or look into or do?
I think generally, you know, the science, or we always want to have higher resolution. So the higher resolution that we have been gaining in the past few decades is mostly through different type of imaging. Mm-hmm. Let's say you have MRI imaging, CT scan, we have ultrasound, so we have a lot of different imaging technology, even microscopy and so on. I really think that in the first 2 decades, majority of these technologies will be replaced by molecular technology for screening purposes.
So what do you suggest people do? They go into higher resolution imaging?
So molecular imaging is going to provide higher resolution, in my opinion.
Okay, so they go into molecular.
Yes. For example, you know, I met an entrepreneur gentleman tonight. You know, he's working on endometriosis. Endometriosis, you know, can you detect that with imaging today? No. There is abdominal pain that you would have, and you have to go to doctor, and doctor will tell, oh, okay, maybe we should do laparoscopy. You would have endometriosis. These are signs of endometriosis. So they go in and find, you know, endometriotic tissues and remove them. Mm-hmm. So that is very inefficient way of basically assessing and also getting rid of endometriosis. So of course, you know, with molecular imaging, so molecular detection that you are going to have, so they are working on, they could have much higher sensitivity than you would, basically a doctor would come up with, you know, in terms of diagnosis. So these are the type of examples. Or cancer, for example, GRAIL test that we developed. So that is, of course, you know, much higher resolution than any other imaging technology that you have out there. So you can detect the stage 1 cancer, stage 2 cancers, which are very small in the body. And, you know, if you would do full body MRI, so you cannot detect it. Yes. With CT scan, you might be able to see it, but the false positive rate is very high.
I tell you what, I try to represent these people and see what they would like to learn about the areas they want to go to. But at this point, I think I'm going to leave it to them to ask their own question and find out what is it that they want to know. So we have time for maybe 3 or 4 questions. And can we get a microphone to that lady over there? And if you please say your name and your affiliation and then state your question briefly.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Sophia Mirza. Salam, Mostafa. I'm from UC Berkeley. And I had a question about how like high manufacturing costs and challenges associated with like these personalized cell therapies can affect like regulatory hurdles and like how to overcome them to ensure like these therapies are safe and accessible to like all in the future.
That's a very good question and very low.
See, they can ask better questions than I can.
I think, one of the big challenges in cell therapy, of course, is lack of standard. So FDA has not defined what is the therapeutic standard to, have a general kind of guideline for cell therapy companies. So what they do, they actually look at each case differently, and it could be very different. So the level of purity that we need to have in the cells, with the technologies that we have today, they are not easy actually to identify. So you really need to understand the potency, purity of those cells. And there is no good guideline actually for these things. And that's why I really think that there are a lot of opportunities in that area to develop new technologies for defining the standard for the future treatments.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Other questions? Other questions? Raise your hands, please. Okay.
Mr. Ronaghi, I'm originally from San Diego, and your work with your colleagues at Illumina is legendary of what you did compared to what we used to do with sequencing machines back in the early days. So congratulations on all your work. I'm curious. My name is Mehran, and my company is focused on longevity, and we talk about a lot of the things that go wrong as you age, including genomic instability. I'm curious, without sharing as much as you can share, where you see the vision of cell therapy, and 10, 15, 20 years from now, what kind of impactful solutions are we going to have? And I'll give an example of that before you answer. One of the companies, as you might know, based in Stanford, it's not exactly what you're talking about, but they're talking about, for example, replacing mitochondria, the power packs of the cell, through bioreactors and things of that nature. So I'm curious about your vision of where some of these cell therapies are headed in about 10, 15 years.
Thank you.
I think we are in a very early stage of cell therapy. By the way, I'm not cell therapist, so I don't know that much about that field, but I'm not shy about expressing my opinions. So take it with a grain of salt. I really think that majority of the blood-based cancer will be cured actually in the next 5 to 7 years. And solid tissues are super challenging. So maybe it would take 2-3 times longer than that. But using, the cell as a means of increasing longevity, I think, that is super complex. Of course, there has been a lot of studies on, loading mitochondria in the cells. So you can increase, the longevity of that cells. Of course, if you can breathe, so if you can function, if you can metabolize, so you can probably live longer. I don't know. But I think, yes, there is some meat on that bone, but I really don't know if that's going to be a solution. Longevity is very complex, and I've been trying to stay away from that, despite the fact that it's very exciting. I think, when it comes to longevity, I would go to the verticals of the longevity. Let's say immune aging, muscle aging. So those kind of things are going to be narrower, but still super complex. I wouldn't dare to go toward that area.
Question, Farzad?
Thank you. great job in your presentation. My name is Farzad. I'm Vice President of AlphaWave. So question is, knowing that I'm a semiconductor guy, with advances of semiconductor technology to getting faster and faster with a lower power and lower cost, would that help you? Or
it has helped, of course. I think biology is actually one of the very unique area that would benefit from all the technological developments that happens actually in the field. So I can give you examples for ours, actually how semiconductor field, computation, advances in physics, advances in chemistry, advances in graphic, GPUs, and I can go on and on and on, and how they are converging to make, advances in biology, the way we study biology. So as technology developer, you have to be on top of all these trends. I love to follow, for example, what's happening in micro LED now. So it's amazing opportunities that could happen, that could bring to biologies actually with those technologies. But you really need to understand, what you're solving. I really think that I have started actually companies based on technologies, but more recently I'm trying to identify the market and then start developing technology. So it's much easier actually to bring the technologies together to address, a market than develop a technology and look for market.
Maybe a couple of more questions. We have one over here.
Thank you, Dr. Ronaghi. Mohsen from Stanford. So as you talked about the technology and some of the needs, I generally, as somebody basic in the genomics, I'm thinking about the privacy issue in genomics. And especially some people, given the opportunity has been always in the genome science, but some people, they has the hesitancy to, to sequence their genome, probably because of the, kind of fear of where is my data. What do you think, both from the technology side and from the need side?
That's a very good question. I really think that privacy is a major issue. So you can give me any piece of DNA, and I can probably locate the person. And what we were following actually when I was at Illumina, so we were looking at how to transfer the data without revealing, the privacy. And so my team would always tell me, any open API you have, that's the opening, for basically the data being stolen. And so we were actually very interested in homomorphic, encryption. But it hasn't panned out, the way that we wanted. But there are good progress in confidential, data transfer that's happening actually now that could be interesting. But still, that's not a problem that's solved. And anyone who can solve that, I think there is a possibility for a company.
Yeah. Last question. And after that, Dr. Ronaghi would be available for your one-on-ones or after talk.
Thank you for your really nice information that you gave. This question maybe, I don't know.
Can you please state your name first?
I'm Ali. I'm data scientist. And one question that I have is that nowadays, especially in past years, many companies start developing this high computational capacity for particularly these large language models that you're saying now. And one of the things that I read somewhere that is that when everything subsides on this LLM, companies will have a huge computational capability and nothing to do with them. So what do you think will be possible in your...
What do you mean with subsiding?
So, I mean, so basically this LLM, they're just developing and making it bigger and bigger and bigger. But then, and the prediction is that somebody come up with some technology to make it much smaller with the same capability. And
but that's a speculation.
yeah, but let's say now we have this huge capacity, and what is it that is possible in your field that you can? It is possible to do then, which is not possible now.
Currently, in order for us, to process the data, we have to shrink the data to a very, very large degree. And of course, you would lose some information. If I would have, cheap, inexpensive kind of, capacity, I would actually not to compress that, that data to process. So look at all the imaging data, all the molecular data. So all these devices that we are building, sequencing, cells, and so on. So any of those companies, they would have the potential, if they are successful, within 3 to 4 years, they would generate more data than Facebook is generating per year. So we are not even in day one in data processing in biology.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the AmidiGroup, Plug and Play, Persian Tech Network, and the Iranian community, I would like to thank you wholeheartedly for giving us the opportunity to learn more about.
Thank you, Saeed John, and thank you, Rahim and Saeed, for bringing everyone.